Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. In life as in death, Pope Francis chose simplicity over pomp and pageantry. His last will and testament detailed a very simple wake and burial, a far cry from how his predecessors were laid to rest.
The Pope is yet to be buried, and already names of his possible successors are already floating, including our very own Chito Tagle. But one priest reminds Filipinos rooting for the cardinal to curb their expectations.
And Vice President Sara Duterte's lawyers are very confident that their client will win her impeachment trial, which starts 3 months from now.
Nakakalungkot po sobra na yung pagkawala nito. Isa siyang progressive na po. Lagi niyang niyayakap ang kahit sinong tao. Malaki, maliit, mahirap, mayaman.
Just like how he lived and throughout his 12-year papacy, Pope Francis has ensured that his funeral will be a simple one, breaking a long-standing tradition. Today, the Vatican released photos and video of Pope Francis currently lying in an open coffin in the chapel of his Casa Santa Marta residence.
Now, traditional papal funerals involve dead pontiffs having 3 coffins, one made out of cypress wood, one of lead, and one of elm. These are placed one inside another before the body is placed inside and then buried in the Vatican grottos beneath St. Peter's Basilica. But Pope Francis shunned these rituals when he approved the Simplified rules in April 2024. His remains, as you can see, have been placed in one simple coffin made of wood and lined with zinc and will not be raised on a platform. The coffin will remain open until the night before Francis's funeral.
Tomorrow, Pope Francis's coffin will be moved from his residence to St. Peter's Basilica, where he will lie in state until his funeral on Saturday. The procession will pass through Piazza Santa Marta, a square outside the papal residence, and the Piazza dei Proto Martiri Romani. Then it will move across the Arch of the Bells and enter St. Peter's Square. From there, the procession will proceed to St. Peter's Basilica through its central door.
Again, Pope Francis's funeral will be held in St. Peter's Square on April 26, or 5 days after his passing. After that, in another break from tradition, Francis's body will be taken to Rome's Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore for burial. It was just as how we foresaw.
Yeah, super
right?
simple.
Yes.
No pomp, nothing was shiny, nothing was really gold and standing out, which is the case for the previous popes. The wooden coffin.
Exactly. I didn't
no
realize
stand.
there were 3 coffins.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
You also have Pope Francis asking to be buried in Santa Maria Maggiore because he did also devote his life to Saint Mary Major, and that's a sign of his, devotion, his simplicity as a Catholic and a Pope.
It's really so admirable how he shunned all these
The
trappings.
Yeah. And also, I think it's worth noting that he will be the first Pope, and he really chose to be buried outside of the Vatican. And he actually changed some of the rules last year or 2 years ago, very recently, for this moment. And he did, though, retain the 3, kumbaga, pinaka-major, pinaka-solemn
And
parts
also,
of it.
5 days from the time of death is quite short,
It is.
right?
Usually, we're talking 15 to 20
And
days.
the novena's 9 days.
9 days, yeah.
So this is another break.
Another.
I guess he didn't want too much fuss.
Yeah. You kind of know that feeling, yung nahihiya ka sometimes na when everyone's looking at you and you nakaka-conscious siya. And maybe that's part of the humility that he espoused.
You know what I also noticed, just on social media, right? When you look at different posts, people are saying if you really want to get to know or look back at the journey of Pope Francis, there are 2 movies that you could watch right now: 2 Popes and Conclave, and that's more of the election process,
Both
right?
on Netflix.
Yeah, and I was watching 2 Popes last night, and it recalled there how Pope Francis was almost going to retire already from being a cardinal because he just wanted to serve his life, the rest of his life, being a parish priest in Buenos Aires. But then he was called to serve a bigger purpose, which is, of course, being the head of the church.
And I was reading an account of the New York Times reporter who's been covering the papacy. and he expected Pope Francis to be Pope way earlier.
Oh.
Except that it didn't happen, and it was Pope Benedict. Yeah, and then he thought that he would be too old when he was elected.
Yeah,
so,
which was 12 years ago.
Yes, and he said that what was very, I think, how he was affected was because, well, all the media have to trail the Pope in his visits to countries that were, you know, people really didn't care about them.
Yes.
And so it made, he said the effect on him was he made him care about these forgotten countries.
About everyone. He was saying something about everyone deserves the blessing, whether it's a same-sex couples or whatever. I really like that about him, and I think that's also what makes him such a controversial pope. Apart from the rejection of all the fancy things and the pomp, he was really, really progressive. For me, I find him like such a modern. Maybe he's too modern for 2025 even.
Even if some progressive thought he didn't do enough. I guess the expectations were very high.
Yes, and I think you will like this. He was the only pope, I think, who put such a emphasis on the environment, care for the environment.
Yes.
He said
In
climate
May
change is a moral
2015,
thing.
his encyclical Laudato Si really focused on the environment and its impact on the poor.
Yes.
How the poor was really the victim of all these. He even mentioned how we waste so much money on consumerism, you know.
Only for this planet to be like covered in filth, right?
Yeah.
And he called pollution a sin. And
So it's so apt
It's
that
so-
his coffin is this simple, the ceremonies are as simple as they could be, although all the world leaders will be congregating in the Vatican. Yeah.
we're gonna definitely watch out for that.
Yeah, so this is not the first time that Pope Francis departed from tradition and expectations. Since his election in 2013, the first Jesuit pontiff from South America opted for a no-frills lifestyle and burial. Mon Gualvez has this story.
Simple, low-key, humble. That's how most Catholics describe Pope Francis's lifetime. In so many ways, he chose simplicity over the splendor his title could easily accord him. Francis was the first pontiff who chose not to reside in the huge papal apartment in the Apostolic Palace. Instead, he stayed at the Santa Marta guest house with other employees and personnel of the Vatican. In his last testament, Pope Francis's wish was also straightforward and undemanding. He wanted to be laid to rest in a wooden coffin, far from the three-layered ones typically used for popes. He asked for no decorations, just a simple inscription that says Franciscus. Pope Francis also wanted to be buried at the Basilica of St. Mary Major instead of St. Peter's Basilica, where most of his predecessors were laid to rest. That's because Francis was a devotee. He always went to this Marian shrine before he left for and returned from apostolic trips. He even indicated the exact spot for his permanent resting place. In the death certificate released by the Vatican, stroke and heart failure were pointed out as causes of Pope Francis's death. Cardinals are now expected to iron out plans for the wake and funeral of Jorge Mario Bergoglio, whose name Francis was a tribute to the saint that dedicated his life to poverty, peace, and the environment. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
And joining us tonight from Rome is Reverend Father Earl Alison Valdez. Father Earl is from the Archdiocese of the Manila Pontificio Collegio Filipino in Italy. Good evening, Father.
It was a pleasant afternoon here, despite the days of mourning. And a pleasant evening to you two ladies.
Take us through the events that will be taking place, and for instance, the 9-day masses have been cut short. So how will this be handled?
In fact, what we are going through right now would be the Novendiale, in which we observe 9 days of mourning. But to be more precise, the funeral would be, well, on the average, around the 4th to the 6th day. So I think the schedule has been already fixed and has been announced by the Vatican media. By 9 a.m. of Wednesday, the Pope's remains will be transferred to the St. Peter's Basilica from the chapel of his residence at the Santa Marta for public viewing. And on the 6th will be the funeral mass and the burial rites for our Holy Father Francis.
So is the 5-day, these 5 days, is that traditional or in the case of Pope Francis only?
No, I think in the case of the previous popes, no, Benedict and Pope Benedict XVI and John Paul II, it was also around that time.
I see. So the novena just goes on even while the burial has already happened.
Yeah, which is actually just part and parcel of the whole 9 days of mourning. You know? They are not necessary, but it is the initiative of the people to have devotional prayer and activities during those 9 days.
And this veering away from tradition, did you expect this from Pope Francis?
It depends on what you ask, no? Because in fact, that is actually traditional in a sense that the bishops of Rome may be buried even outside St. Peter's Basilica. It has just been established when the basilica was built, which is around the 17th century. No? So it is actually part and parcel of the papal tradition. And it is upon his choice, no, actually, he was able to make use of that privilege as an expression of his devotion to the Blessed Mother. Because in a lot of instances when the Holy Father travels in and out of the country of Rome, of Italy, he would always pass by the Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore to pray in front of the Maria Salus Populi Romani, you know, the age-old icon that was lodged in the Basilica of the Blessed Mother.
Okay, Father Earl, we were chatting earlier before you came on, and we were discussing about some of the changes that Pope Francis made before he died, I think last year or maybe last year, to all the, the procedures and the process after the pontiff dies. Can you talk us through some of the more major changes that he made? I know nothing was too erratic or too crazy, but how did the faithful or the Catholic faith receive those changes?
I think there was, if you look at it as a whole, no, we can read it as a sort of going back to tradition. No? But tradition in a sense that we look forward, and in a backward manner, we look forward to the early days of the church and what has been established before, no? Which is basically going back to becoming more understanding, more merciful, which is not new to us. No? So a lot of these things really are in view of that. No? Among others, of course, the on issues surrounding divorce and remarried Catholics, also on procedures regarding certain things in the church, especially in canon law, especially in the strict observance of the discipline of the priests, no? And also shortening and among others the process of annulment. But I think more than that, what is really transformative is the presence of the Pope himself, no? As one among the people, which as it has always been, should be the case for leaders of the church, no? Not just in his level, not just on his rank, but everybody. No? That kind of sincerity, that kind of nearness to the people, I think is what really made his papacy of 12 years so different.
Perhaps the authenticity, Father?
Yes. No, that sense of authenticity, of being very real, no, of showing his gladness, of showing his happiness, but also at times when there is a need to say sorry, to apologize for the faults of the church, he does not spare words for that.
Well, Father, Pope Francis did dedicate his whole life to simplicity and service. Do you think that he made a strong case for canonization, for being a saint?
Well, I think it's a very distant question as of now. No, in fact, we just let things take its toll. No, we mourn for his passing in these next 9 days. But probably that will be a question that will be greatly considered, especially that he is the Pope who went through different shifts in our world. We had COVID. Right now, we had different conflicts that have not yet been resolved. So I believe that may be possible. Although, yeah, that will be a question that we can consider further on.
And Father, speaking of questions that will be considered, of course, is the succession of the papacy. Can you give us a sentiment of the church leaders, Father, if a candidate who embodies the same progressive values as Pope Francis will be elected, or is there a strong pushback also from traditionalist conservatives inside the church?
And before you answer, Father, no, to add to Pawi, because some observers are saying na take turns siya like a conservative, and then they'll swing to something more progressive, and then it'll go back. But in these modern times, I don't know, do you think that still follows?
Well, just two things, no? The first would be, I think, when it comes to, on the level of the leaders of the church ourselves, including us priests, no? And also the faithful, for everybody. Everybody has been proceeding with much prudence nowadays, no? We still have the 9 days of the Novendiale, so that is not yet on the minds of everybody, although perhaps some initial logistical concerns would eventually come up in the next days. And the second would be, well, we just follow the process. We just follow the procedures that have been set. No? And as for reading whatever trends or waves, no, I think in my experience, it has not been the case. No? I had, in my lifetime, had already 3 popes, and I think we are moving forward. We are moving forward, but at the same time, with the past as our reference. So in whatever form that it takes, it will depend on the situations that we face.
If I may follow up that question, Father Earl, you know, the globe is leaning towards conservatism. We can see that through, you know, leaders that have come to power recently. And do you think that will affect how the College of Cardinals choose the next Pope?
Well, I think insofar as they are pressing issues that need to be interpreted and responded upon, that will be a point of discussion. No? And we note that the church has been, I'm sorry, excuse me. The church has been at the forefront, and especially with Pope Francis, it always comes down to the dialogue. No? Remember that in the past few years, the way the church is synodal. No? So whatever comes out of it would probably have that in mind. No? But whoever it is, I think that is not a question that we can answer right now. No? What will depend eventually is how the Holy Spirit will move in their discussions, and whoever will be chosen, we believe and we trust would carry the church, would lead the church together with everybody among us in the direction that our Lord would want us to be, to respond to and to walk together with other peoples, with leaders, with those who are in the margins, to everybody.
We thank you so much for your time, Reverend Father Earl Allison Valdez from the Archdiocese of the Manila Pontificio Colegio Filipino in Italy.
Now, meanwhile, all masses at the Manila Cathedral today have been dedicated to Pope Francis. Let's get the latest there from mobile journalist Marimon Reyes. She joins us live tonight. Hi, Marimon. May misa pa ba dyan? Tuloy pa rin ba ang hourly masses para kay Pope Francis?
Magandang gabi sa inyo, ladies. So far dito sa Manila Cathedral, kaninang 12:10 p.m. or noon yung pinaka-last na misa. So yung scheduling dito ng mga daily masses nila, it's still the same. Pero so far, ang pinakamalinaw dito is until doon sa end ng 9 days na supposed mourning for the death of Pope Francis. Mananatiling bukas ang katedral until 7 o'clock p.m. para doon sa gustong magtirik ng kanilang mga kandila sa Christ the King Chapel sa loob mismo ng Manila Cathedral. However, kanina pa lang umaga doon sa 9 a.m. Mass for the Eternal Repose of Pope Francis or Lolo Kiko as we know him or as we call him, napuno talaga ng pagdadalamhati ang mga churchgoers, and yung iba nga dito hindi pa rin daw talaga nila matanggap or hindi pa raw sila makapaniwala na supposedly it's a happy week dapat kasi Easter Tuesday, katatapos na ng Easter Sunday. Pero the bad news came in at all they have to do na lang daw ngayon is dalhin sa kanilang mga puso yung mga iniwan na mga teaching at yung naging inspirasyon daw na ibinigay ni Lolo Kiko, and to live on and continue doing the good deeds daw.
And Mary Mon, kanina nga nag-preside din ng misa dyan si Archbishop Jose Cardinal Advincula at makakasama nga siya sa Conclave of Electors. Nasabi ba niya kung kailan siya pupunta ng Rome, ng Italy?
Unfortunately, right after nung misa kanina dito kay Cardinal Advincula, hindi na siya nagpa-unlock ng interview sa media. Bishop Pablo David he's planning to leave the Philippines to go to Rome around April 25, so that's Friday. Meron kasi nga limited time at pahirapan daw kasi talaga makapag-book ng kanilang tickets papuntang Europa. So we are expecting na yung mga cardinals natin mula dito sa Pilipinas, so that would be Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, Cardinal Pablo David, at saka ito nga si Cardinal Advincula, hopefully before ma-push through talaga yung supposed conclave, nandoon na sila sa Europa.
Okay, and Mary Mon, ang alam din namin is mayat-mayat yung pagkalimbang ng mga bells, church bells dyan sa Manila Cathedral. Is that still ongoing? And ano ba yung relevance niyan?
Yes, kahapon po dito sa Manila Cathedral, niring nila yung kanilang kampana na around 12 to 13 minutes to honor yung years of papacy ni Pope Francis. Pero traditionally speaking kasi yung pag-ingay ng mga kampana o ng mga dambala ay para tawagin ang mga worshippers and also to announce significant events. So dito sa sitwasyon natin, sa konteksto ni Pope Francis, yung kanyang pagpanaw ay isang bagay na gustong-gusto ng simbahan na i-honor, balikan kung ano nga ba yung naging serbisyo na ibinigay ni Lolo Kiko. At the same time, hihikayat ang mga kapatid nating Katoliko na ipagdasal nga itong eternal slumber, rest, and repose ni Pope Francis. So far, today, hindi natin narinig, hindi kumalembang dito ang kampana ng 12 to 13 minutes, pero usually naman, by the hour, nire-ring din nila ang kanilang bells, and we're expecting until the end of the supposed 9-day morning ng simbahan, pagpapatuloy nila yun kasama ng candle lighting sa loob ng Manila Cathedral.
Sabi mo nga, Mary Mon, we are in the midst of the 9 days of mourning. Have you noticed an uptick of mass goers dyan sa Manila Cathedral? At ano ba ang iba pang plano ng simbahan in the coming days?
Yes, mga estudyante, lalo-lalo na kanina, first thing in the morning, mga estudyante, nung nakausap natin, may klase daw sila, may pasok daw sila, pero ayaw nilang sayangin yung oras na kung makakadalaw daw sila dito at makapagtirik ng kanilang kandila for Pope Francis. Kasabay nito, marami ring mga turista na pumunta dito sa Manila Cathedral dahil alam nga nila na merong Eucharistic celebration na gagawin for the eternal repose of Pope Francis. Pero kasabay naman ito, doon sa loob ng 9 days na morning ay pagpapatuloy yung kanilang daily masses, which would also include sa petitions itong pamapayapang pamamahinga ni Pope Francis. Same goes din sa daily prayers, at kung meron naman daw ditong gagawa ng kanilang personal vigils or prayers, open naman ang simbahan hanggang 7 p.m. nga, lalong-lalo na doon sa magtitirik ng kanilang kandila or maybe mag-o-offer ng kanilang mga bulaklak sa Christ the King Chapel sa loob.
All right, well, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes reporting to us live from Manila Cathedral. We're going to take a quick break, but coming up next on The Big Story, the Commission on Elections has asked senatorial candidate Camille Villar to explain allegations of vote buying. The details of that when we return. Keep it here.
We're back on The Big Story with news of Vice President Sara Duterte talking about her looming impeachment trial. During a visit to her father's hometown of Danao, Cebu, the VP thanked supporters following her father's arrest. She also expressed confidence that she will be acquitted when the Senate tackles her impeachment case in late June.
That they are more than confident in winning the impeachment trial, impeachment case. So, yan lang yung masasabi ko.
Duterte also clarified her endorsement of Senator Amy Marcos and Camille Villar, saying it was a personal decision. This is a shift from her earlier statement that she would no longer endorse candidates for the midterm elections. The Vice President admits surprise over the latest Pulse Asia survey that showed she is the only top official to receive majority approval and trust ratings.
Nagulat ako nung nakita ko yung numbers ng pagtitiwala ng mga tao sa akin dahil sa sobrang dami ng lumabas ng paninira sa kung saan man, galing sa mga politiko, galing sa social media, lahat, all sides, merong paninira. Nakakagulat na tumataas yung numbers.
The Commission on Elections has issued a show cause order against a national candidate, the first in the Bilang Pilipino midterm elections. COMELEC is asking senatorial candidate Camille Villar to explain her supposed presence in a cash raffle in Imus, Cavite. The poll body's Kontrabigay committee says the show cause order stemmed from an anonymous complaint wherein a video showed Villar on stage with local candidates supposedly raffling off cash to the crowd. Villar has 3 days to answer COMELEC, but she has already denied that the alleged vote buying. She claimed that the event in question happened on February 9 or before the start of the campaign period.
Ito, ang ano lang natin ito is show cause order lang, no? Para bigyan ng linaw, para bigyan din pagkakataon si Camille Villar na magpaliwanag, no? Tungkol sa mga issue o mga bagay na ito. Kung hindi sasagot within 3 days upon receipt, no, doon sa show cause order natin, then the Kontrabigay will further investigate and evaluate, no, lahat ng mga anggulo, lahat ng mga circumstances and situation, then we will recommend to the NBank kung ano yung maging aksyon ng Committee on Kontrabigay.
Now let's move the discussion a bit further with political strategist Alan Herman. He's the president of Agents International. Hi, Alan. I hope your ring light is better tonight. Now, let's zero in on the most recent survey just yesterday, which somehow disproves your suction effect theory. Or did you say that suction effect is only short-lived?
Wait, what now? Disproves my theory? I think, on the contrary, I think it categorically proves it. I did say that there would be a consolidation of pro-Duterte forces because of the recent events. Of course, we're talking about the impeachment of VP Inday Sara and the bringing of former president to The Hague, thus consolidating and reigniting support for pro-Duterte candidates. I did issue a challenge whether it would be sustainable or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it seems that this survey shows that there is still some lingering effect, although not as pronounced. Because some of the, I mean, if you look at, for example, Senator Bato went down a couple of notches. The page 2, some of the page 2 PDP candidates have returned back to their place in page 2. So there is that suction effect. Let's see how long it will last until if it can be sustained until May.
Well, Alan, let's talk about the two pink or dilaw candidates. We have Bam and Kiko. They have slid down beyond the 14th spot, which is so alanganin, di ba? Parang medyo andun ka na pero wala. What can you say about the interplay of the recent events with the arrest and, you know, VP Sara again coming out and finally campaigning? Did that, you think, have an effect on their numbers?
I think it's an interplay of both. On one hand, you are fighting against an administration machinery of which Senator Bam and Senator Kiko are not part of, and you have that consolidation of the PDP forces, the pro-Duterte forces, thus easing out. The Senate is not a zero-sum game. It's not 1 versus 1. It's you're picking 12 at a time. So the dynamic is entirely different, but we're still seeing. I mean, it's still fluid. Right now, this is a good indication. I think the rankings right now up to 14 are still pretty fluid. I would think we have an idea. We have a basic idea of how it will look like in May, but I think up to the 14th spot, there can still be some changes.
Well, let's talk about Senator Amy Marcos. I mean, given the endorsement of the Vice President, they came out with that ad, Uniteam. It went quite viral, right? Do you think that will translate to votes come May 12? It's so late in the game.
I see that you're wearing black too, Pauline.
It's not related to that.
But the endorsement in and of itself will definitely have an effect. Do I think that the ad could have been done better? I absolutely do think so. Do I think that the messaging could have been tweaked to be more effective? Absolutely. I actually like the messaging of her endorsement of Congresswoman Camille Villarmor about talking about friendship and talking about a friendship that endures, that sticks despite challenges and tough times. That would be more palatable, I think, to the Filipino voter versus this dark, brooding, very almost goth ad. But definitely the endorsement of one VP in Daisara, as the trust ratings have shown, she is the most trusted government official right now. The Duterte candidates have surged, all have surged. So the endorsement in and of itself, whatever that ad was, they could have been tying knots, they could have been wrapping gifts, they could have been walking in a park, and it still would have had a positive effect on Senator Amy.
What about Camille? Because she, unlike Senator Amy, who's kind of a lone ranger, Camille is part of Nacionalista, which is part of the five-party coalition of Alianza, and they're
Politics
still in
is addition daw.
Oh, and sabi ni
ng-
Harry Roque. So, what do you make of that?
Ces Oreña-Drilon quoting Harry Roque and
No,
chuckling.
not just
knowingly
Harry
at the
Roque,
side,
the campaign manager of the admin.
Toby Tiangco.
Yes.
Toby Tiangco, si Kong Toby, no? And, Ces giving the knowing chuckles in the background when we mentioned that Camille is a lone ranger. Amy is a lone ranger. I think in terms of having the machinery and having the name recall, having the resources, both economic and political, I think Congresswoman Camille has a very, very good chance of making it to the Magic 12. This endorsement by VP Sara is practically giving her the best of both worlds, as it were. She hasn't been kicked out of the party. She hasn't been kicked out of the admin slate. There was a Lakas consolidation party just today. Well, not a party, but a gathering today organized by the speaker to throw their full weight behind the Alianza candidates. Kong Camille was still very much part of that. And at the same time, she's running ads with VP Sara, the seeming sworn enemy of the admin. So talk about having your cake and eating it too politically.
What about Willie Revillame? He dropped to 13th spot.
And I can feel the sadness in your voice, Tess. I see that this has affected you greatly, that this has caused much
I was
pain and
about to say
devastation.
Gretchen Hoss, nemesis. I don't know.
Says definitely
go
lost.
ahead.
She did not lose any sleep over that.
You know, the thing about national elections, especially if we're talking about Senate, 70% is comprised of retail votes or free market votes. Definitely Kuya Will, bigyan mo ng jacket, he has that in spades. He's a household name. His fans go absolutely haywire when they see him, so he's got that. But the 30% is still machinery, and the 30% of your 100% vote is still machinery and money, which is probably last 70 days of an election. That's what's at play, the machinery money quadrant, and perhaps this is the reason why we're seeing Kuya Will dropping, because after all, he is still a political neophyte.
But supposedly, he's a secret candidate of the Duterte camp. So,
Well, I don't think he's made bones of it. Sorry, I don't think he's been clever
Hiding
about
it.
it, or
Hiding
he's hidden it. He's quite open in his support for the former president. But in terms of being a hardline ally, I think they consider him a soft ally. If he does make it to the Senate, I think they're counting on that no vote for conviction of VP Inday's impeachment. But in terms of being a hardline ally, being part of the Duterte, which is now 12, with the addition of Senator Amy and Concamil, as per VP Inday, hindi pa rin siya kasama. So, ano siya, secret ally na medyo masyadong secretive sa mga Duterte machinery.
But the effect of the drop in approval and trust ratings of the president, will this reflect on his senatorial slate?
Okay, this is what boggles me, and no, now it wasn't my ring light test that was the problem last time. It was my audio, actually both. This is what boggles me as much as my ring light issues before. No, this is actually the lowest trust and approval ratings of any sitting president in recent memory. The lowest we've had in recent memory, I think in history, might be in history, was PGMA,
Yes.
Gloria Arroyo, who had an approval rating during the midterms of 30%. And we know what happened there. She only won 2 seats. The ill-fated Team Unity only won 2 senatorial seats. And now we have President Bongbong Marcos with an even lower trust and approval rating of 25. And yet it seems to be statistically almost, well, I don't want to say determined, but it seems to be statistically probable that he'll get 8 to 10 candidates in the Senate. So this only shows one thing. This is a clear demonstration of the fact that at the end of the day, the Filipino voters will just really vote for personality. They might be blissfully oblivious to party leanings, to issues, to where they stand. Kasi sinasabi nila 60% anti-China, pero ang daming mga ang daming mga pro-China candidates na nakakapasok sa survey.
Number
They're
1
saying,
pa.
25% ang I see what you did there, Ces. 25% ang sadsad yung approval ratings ni PBBM. Pero yung mga kandidato niya, 8 to 10 pa rin ang nandyan sa top 12. So it's really that dissonance, that disconnect of the Filipino voter to political affiliations, issue-driven narratives. It's sad and at the same time quite eye-opening.
Alan, don't you think it's possible that people are looking, past the midterms and into the impeachment trial come June, and kumbaga yung midterm election naging proxy na lang for the impeachment votes? What do you think about that?
1,000,000%. If you're a politician, I wouldn't say the public is necessarily thinking this. I think that this is a mind map that is left to politicians. But yes, to your point, the politicians are definitely looking beyond the midterms. In fact, they're already looking at 2028. At this point in time, seasoned politicians are already saying, saan tayo tatalon? How will we maneuver? What is the most likely scenario in terms of the power shift? We're already seeing this now with the Camille ad and the Amy ad with VP Inday. Kasi nakita nila, the tide shifted. The tide shifted quite clearly towards pro-Duterte sentiment, and a lot of politicians suddenly recoiled and became silent and suddenly took less fiery stance, as it were. So yes, the short answer to your question, Shawn, is yes. They're looking past them.
Which Alianza candidates managed to ride that wave, that shift the best, in your opinion?
I would say Concamil, definitely. Definitely Concamil, 100%. The best of both worlds talaga. Number one, I like her ad much better. Number two, she's not being eyed with suspicion. She's not being eyed with raised eyebrows by either camp. Unlike Senator Amy. With disdain. Unlike Senator Amy, di ba? The pro DDS, the pro Dutertes view her as a spy, as a fake ally, even spokespersons like Attorney Panelo, Harry Roque, di ba binabanatan siya. Si Concamil wala. So definitely si Concamil nakikinabang. Smart play.
And Alan, on the other side of the fence, You got PDP Laban candidates Bongo, Bato de la Rosa, and Philip Salvador enjoying significant gains in surveys, and some
Don't forget
political...
Marcoleta.
And Rodante Marcoleta, of course, and some analysts are saying it could be attributed to sympathy. I mean, do you agree with that? And how sustainable is that until May 12th?
You know, Pauline, I'm so tempted to answer your question with another question, but you know what? I'll do it. Does anybody know what Philip Salvador's platform is? Probably not, except he has surged on one platform. I did some air quotes there if you didn't catch it. His one platform is bring him home. This is all he's saying in rallies. He's crying, he's beating his chest, he's tearing his hair, pulling at his sleeves, bawling at the stage, and just screaming, bring him home, bring him home. And the singular point of his speeches and interviews right now is, if I get elected to the Senate, my one obsession, my one cause for existence in the Senate is to bring Rodrigo Duterte home. And look at where he is in the survey. Clearly, it is the case. It has worked.
All right. I can't help but ask this final question. May last 2 minutes kayang pwedeng mangyari pa? Anong pinaka dangerous that could happen in the last 2 minutes?
Politically, Ces, well, I know you're a young voter, no? I know you've only voted in the past 2 elections kasi voting age ka pa lang nung 2 elections. But
kanina pa ako binabanatan nitong si Alan. Ewan ko bakit.
You know, 20 days is a lifetime in political dynamics. Ask one Pasig congressional candidate named Christian Sia, whose political fortune turned literally in a matter of 80 seconds. His political career took a dynamic 180-degree turn. So yeah, 20 days is a long time. Marami pang ano yan, marami pang pwedeng mangyari, marami pang alyansa, marami pang mga ano dyan, may drama, and you can see it already. May nag-file against Conclave na ano daw, na election violation. Kasi ngayon na yung panahon where the 11th, ang babantayin nyo dyan is the 11th to 14th spot. That's where the drama and the excitement happens. Oh my goodness, the mudslinging that will happen in the 11th to 14th spot.
Okay, we'll keep a watch for that. Thank you so much again for the insights, and always with a sprinkling of humor. That was Agents International President Alan Herman, a political strategist.
Thank you so much.
Time to pause for another quick break, but when we return, who are the papabilis or possible successors to Pope Francis? One list is out, and we share them with you in just a bit. Keep it here.
Thank you for staying with us here on The Big Story. National artist and iconic superstar Nora Aunor was laid to rest today at the Libingan ng Mga Bayani. The National Commission for Culture and the Arts and the Cultural Center of the Philippines led the necrological service and tribute this morning at the Metropolitan Theater. The event was attended by family, friends, government officials, and Noranians. Among those who shared their tributes were Director Joel Lamangan, former TV executive Charo Santos Concho, and national artist Ricky Lee. Nora Aunor's remains were then transported to Libingan ng Mga Bayani, where she was given full military honors and laid to rest among the country's most revered figures. In recognition of her contributions to Philippine arts and culture, President Marcos declared April 22 a national day of mourning. The superstar passed away on April 16 at the age of 71 due to acute respiratory failure.
And another funeral that Filipinos and the whole world will be watching is that of Pope Francis's, which is set on Saturday, April 26. And as the Catholic Church prepares for its next leader, several names of high-ranking cardinals are already emerging. And among them is our very own Cardinal Chito Tagle. Here's that story. Among the possible contenders to become the next pope is our kababayan, Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle. Cardinal Tagle is currently the prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. His significant contributions to missionary work and spreading the gospel in Asia has led him to his high-ranking post in the Vatican. The 67-year-old cardinal is also dubbed the Asian Francis because of his and the late pontiff's shared commitment to social justice. Should he be elected, Tagle could become the first pope from Asia. Also among the strong contenders is Matteo Maria Zuppi. 69-year-old Italian cardinal once served as the Archbishop of Bologna. He is nicknamed Italian Bergoglio because, like Francis, Zuppi lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina. There, he was known as a street priest for his closeness to the poor and migrants. If chosen as the next Vicar of Christ, Zuppi will be the first Italian pope since 1978. Also a front-runner is Cardinal Peter Turkson, 76 years old, from Ghana. Like Pope Francis, he is a champion of social justice. He could also make history as the first pope from sub-Saharan Africa. Like Turkson, another possible first pope of color is Cardinal Robert Sara from Guinea. He is a conservative known for his strictly upholding traditional Catholic values. Then there's Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin. He currently serves as the Vatican's Secretary of State. His experience in international relations is one of his strongest assets. Also in the running is French Jean-Marc Aveline. Those close to the cardinal call him John the 24th. Pope Francis previously mentioned that John the 24th could be the name of his successor. The conclave or election of the next pope could happen within 2 weeks. The College of Cardinals is the sole group that will vote, but only cardinals under 80 years old are eligible to do so. Of the 252 cardinals worldwide, only 135 can cast their ballots. Apart from Cardinal Tagle, 2 other Filipinos will also vote: Manila Archbishop Jose Cardinal Advincula and Caloocan Bishop Pablo Virgilio Cardinal David. 2/3 majority vote is required to elect the new pope. But as a popular saying in the Vatican goes, enter a conclave as pope, you leave as a cardinal. This means that the age-old tradition of picking the next pope is such a secretive and sacred process, it draws inspiration from the divine and is not a mere popularity contest.
Baka yung sobrang na parang ibinibida natin si Cardinal Tagle, baka mag-boomerang pa sa atin. Kasi mahirap yung pagpasok mo sa conclave, parang ikaw na yung itunuturing ng Santo Papa. Madalas, yung mga ganyan, paglabas ng conclave, hindi tuloy napili.
Ayun nga yung sinasabi nila, no? Enter the conclave as a pope, exit, walk out of it a cardinal, something like that.
It's not a popularity contest, even though there's been clamor from Filipino Catholics, of course, to have Cardinal
Yeah,
Tagle.
let's be a little chill.
Let's be a bit more solemn this time around. But anyway, our big picture for tonight does not stray far, still on Pope Francis. And we have for tonight one of the countless moments when Pope Francis showed why he is known as the People's Pope. This video from April 2018, which resurfaced online shortly after the pontiff's death on April 21, which showed him comforting a child in St. Paul of the Cross Parish in Rome. Watch this.
Statevi lo Spirito Santo che è in voi. Non rattristare.
Non ce la faccio.
Vieni da me. Vieni. Ecco, va bene. Ecco, va bene.
Children ask the most tough questions,
Hardest
right?
questions. Yeah. Remember in 2015, a Filipina girl also asked Pope Francis, why do bad things happen to children? And the Pope answered,
He had a hard time.
He had a hard time. He said, basically, I can't really answer it.
he said somewhat, when the heart is unable to answer itself and cry, then we can understand. And he was telling people, like, it's okay to weep, it's okay to cry.
Well, it is. And it's, again, I guess a really good time to revisit our faiths just after the Holy Week. But that's it for the big story on this Tuesday night.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Good night.